Hi, good morning, Giles.
Oh,
Hi. And yeah, hello to anybody that's watching, whether that's live or after the event. We're doing a session today, which is a little bit about technology and sheds. My name's Rachel Meadows. I work for the UK Men's Sheds Association, and here today with Giles, who I will let introduce himself in a couple of minutes. But just to fill you in, this is a bit of a precursor to Shedfest. So we'll be doing a short session about technology and sheds at Shedfest, but we decided to run 4 sessions over the next 2 months. Just to give a bit of background, a bit of context, to talk about a few different subjects, as the one in Shedfest will be a bit of an overview, really, a chance to kind of recap on some of this. So hopefully this will be a bit of a resource for anybody interested in implementing technology. So it's not going to be too long, I think about 20-30 minutes, but if you've got any questions or comments, you should be able to post them on Facebook or YouTube if you're watching this there, and we can put your questions to Giles or comments. If you're watching this afterwards, and you've got questions or comments, towards the end of the session, we will kind of flash up an email address that you can contact Giles on if you've got something to ask him about. So there's always ways to get in touch, whether you're watching this afterwards or kind of in the moment. So we'll deal with that later. Giles, do you want to say a quick hello and then we can jump into the session?
yes. Hello, everybody. And I think if we could get the next slide up, I think that's my.
Yes, I will. There we go. There we go.
So, hello, everybody. My name's Giles, and I'm CTO of Debenham Shed. Debenham's a very, very picturesque village in the middle of Suffolk. Probably most famous for being where they filmed Lovejoy many years ago. Give you an idea about what it's like there. I've had a lot of IT jobs for many, many, many years. I'm one of those guys who, when you go to museums, is amazed at how big and clunky all the kit is that I used to work on. I'm now retired, and so I do all of the IT work for Debenham Shed. I also run a Silver Surfers Club, and I have a very smart home. I did a quick count up. I think there was over 100 devices that we're monitoring here in my house. Weird because it's a very old house. It's a Tudor house with all this kit in it. But there you go. Right, next slide, please, Rachel. So as Rachel said, I've got a 20-minute session at Shedfest to talk about IT and for sheds. This is a huge topic, and so we decided to sort of slice it up and do these 4 preliminary sessions with you, so that when we get to Shedfest, we can actually spend the time discussing how we progress. What do we do to share resources? What do sheds need that we're not getting at the moment? And how can we coordinate our use of IT through the shed community? This is by no means the totality of shed IT. There's a lot more, and I'm sure other sheds have got stuff that we don't use, but this is a good start anyway, I hope. Can we have the next slide, please?
Yeah, sure.
So fixed assets. The fixed asset is basically the things that we own as a shed that we use for our day-to-day work. And there are good reasons for having a database of that somewhere. A lot of accounting reasons, so that you can work out what the shed's worth, how you can calculate your insurance cover. Of course, obviously, it logs serial numbers in the terrible event that you do get burgled. You can at least tell what you've got. But also, it's good to know what you've got. When we started, sorry, yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you say fixed asset, what is your definition of that? What do you mean by that?
Everything in the shed we split into 2 things. There are the fixed assets. Those are the things that we own and that we're keeping, that we use. And then there's stock, which is things that we've been given that we're going to sell on, or that we've made going to sell on. So anything that comes into the shed is basically dropped in one of those 2 boxes, either an asset or a stock item to move on. And I think one of the sort of salutary things that we found out, we knew we had a few angle grinders, but when we started to log them, we had 17 angle grinders. I don't think any shed in the world needs that many. So we were able to do a massive cull of angle grinders. So it sort of has an added benefit, and it helps you clear your cupboards out.
You could have an angle grinder for every member.
If we could, yes. Yeah. Actually, it turned out that quite a few of them were dangerous. So we had
Right.
into recycling. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay. Oh, can I just go back? Sorry, Giles, can I just go back? You're talking about kind of keeping a register of it. Is that something that, you will talk about later? Is it on a database or
I'm going to talk about I'm going to show you some pages from our fixed asset register database in a few minutes.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Okay.
So when a piece of equipment comes into the shed, either for us to use or to sell on, one of the first things we have to do is test it. And the law is not particularly clear about whether you have to do testing or not, apart from in the workplace. In the workplace, it's very prescriptive. It's basically every 12, generally speaking, every 12 months for most equipment. But anything on a construction site is every 6 months. However, in a shed environment, it doesn't say in sheds you must do A, B, and C. But it does say that you must maintain electrical equipment safe and not dangerous. And one of the best ways of doing that is to perform a portable appliance test, a PAT test. It's called other things. I think, Rachel, you've got another name for it, which I forget.
Yeah, I think when I was looking into it, it was called an ITEE, which was Inspection and Testing of Electrical Equipment. So essentially that was its new name, but it's commonly known as
everybody calls it PAT testing.
Yeah. And I will just flag as well, somebody did comment on the Facebook group and said we shouldn't call it PAT testing because the T actually stands for testing. So really we're saying testing.
It is a tautology, that, but what everybody said.
Comment.
PA testing sounds a bit weird.
PAT testing, yeah. But yeah, it could be known as ITEE. And yeah, from as well, kind of what you just said, Giles, about it's the legal kind of thing. It's not compulsory to do the PAT test, but you do have to ensure that all the equipment's safe. So that seems to be a sensible way of doing it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So what we do here, the UK MSA recommendation is that we PAT test, and it's their recommendation is once a year. If your shed is under construction, I think it's probably a good idea to do it every 6 months on the kit that's in the horrible environment of a construction site. Again, that's a bit more stringent than the UK MSA recommendation, but I think that's appropriate. So when a piece of kit comes into our shed, whether we're going to keep it and put it into our fixed asset or we're going to sell it on into the stock, the first thing we do is we run through the stages of a PAT test, which starts off with a visual inspection, and quite a lot of stuff you can filter just on that. Does it have missing guards? If it does, then it goes into a sort of are we going to fix it or get rid of it box. Does it? A lot of things come in with old UK plugs on them where the pins aren't insulated. That's automatically a fail. We cut the plug off at that stage, and it goes into the do we repair or bin box. Cables are quite often frayed. If it's got a frayed cable, then again, are we going to repair or put it into recycling or onto another shed if appropriate? So those are your sort of visual tests. The next thing I like to do is to actually do a functional test. Whether you do the functional test or the electrical test is up to you. I like to do a functional test, particularly if it's got a plastic case and I don't have to touch it, just to check the motor spins or the heater got on or something like that. Because basically, if it don't work, it goes to the repair or bin box.
Right.
I don't have to do anything else. But so you do a functional test and it may pass or fail, and then again you make the decision.
And that's as it sounds, just to see if it's functioning or not.
Just spin it up if it's got a motor on it or if it's got a heat. Just does it get warm, those sorts of things. And the next step is the actual electrical test, where you plug it into your PAT test meter. You hold, if it's metal, you hold a probe against the metal bits, and you press the button and the meter does the testing. Now, there are two types of meter. There's the very simple ones, which will just give you a pass-fail light. There's a more complex one, which gives you the actual values of the resistances and the currents that it measures. I would recommend that you go for one of those because for two reasons. One is that the IEEE regulations do change over time. In fact, on the most recent 5th generation ones, they actually relaxed one of the requirements because new equipment was failing the regulation 4 tests. It was still safe, but the regulation 4 test was a bit tight. Well, if your meter just goes a pass fail, it may well give you a false positive or a false negative because it hasn't been kept up to speed with the latest regs. Whereas if you've got one that measures actual values, then you can then adjust your pass fail criteria to what the law states. And also things like extension leads, the resistance obviously increases the longer the lead. So you have to take that into account when you're doing your pass fail work, which some very simple meters don't do. So assuming you get a meter that gives you values, then you need to record them, which is the next stage, assuming it passes. You need to record what the values are, and I'll show you those a little bit lower down when we get to our PAT test result.
And who's allowed to do these tests, Giles? Because I know it's just kind of states somebody competent, but
yes, it does state somebody competent. I would advise that if you've got someone in your shed who's going to do your PAT testing, that you put them on one of the courses. There's lots of them about. You get a certificate at the end of it, different types. I went on the full 3-day, I think, course, which culminated in a recognised multiple choice question exam. And having got that, you get a certificate, and obviously that puts you in good stead of understanding how the test works, what it's trying to achieve. And then also it's easier then as regs change for you to keep up to speed with the regs. Guys I went on my course with send me a new copy of or a summary of the update to the regs every time that's a really handy thing. So also you might find that your PAT test meter people do the same thing as well. They update their instructions as the years go on.
And obviously you just said about a 3-day course. Are there shorter courses available?
There are. You can do a 1-day course, 2-day or 3-day.
Okay, right. And it would all kind of qualify.
I had the time to do the 3-day. Perhaps if you're under a bit more pressure, you wouldn't. And I think there are online courses as well. I think you can just go and do the test at the end.
Okay. And I suppose as well, if somebody in a shed does it, and then it's probably quite helpful for kind of local sheds if they know that there's somebody in the area that's potentially available that could, it doesn't seem necessary to kind of get one person from every shed if there's friendly sheds that potentially could share that.
If you are doing PAT testing for multiple sheds, I suggest you take out personal liability insurance just to be 100% safe.
Okay.
So your shed's insurance should cover you for doing the stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, what we tend to do is we tend not to leave the pass-fail tickets on things that we sell. We take all of the labels we've got off them, but obviously we will have tested it, and so we know it's safe.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily leave all our tickets and stuff on them for reasons that may become clearer in a minute.
Okay. Great. And I was just going to ask about the meter that you use. I'm guessing there's varying prices, varying brands.
The decent ones are about 300, 350 quid, something like that. But when you think that, certainly when we were engaging electricians to do PAT testing, they were charging £100 a visit. So it pays for itself pretty quickly. And I mean, our shed's got hundreds and hundreds of bits of electronics, most of which we could throw. We don't use, but it's worth getting a decent meter because it will see you through. And the other thing that you need to do is every year you need to get your meter recertified. So that costs about between £40 to £100 a month, and it's very rare you're at the top end of that, but you do need to get it recertified every year just to say you're confident in the readings that it gives you.
Yeah. Okay. Is that just an online process, or does somebody have to look at that machine?
Oh, you have to send it off. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Physically test it.
They
So,
test
yeah,
the testing machine.
that's the testing machine indeed, and you get a nice little certificate. So,
Okay, so
there are companies that just do that for all meters, but most meter manufacturers also do their own.
okay,
So they'll remind you that you need to get it done.
yes, right.
The other thing I noticed is certainly on mine's a QTech. You get a discount at Christmas time. Presumably they don't get many people sending their meters off at Christmas time, so they give you a discount if you get your meter certified then.
Oh, well, every saving helps, I guess.
Indeed it does, yes.
Okay, great.
Any
So,
more
so
questions
just
about
I was
Pat?
just kind of going to say, obviously, to summarize, it's not a legal requirement. Nobody's going to come knocking on a shed's door, but it is best practice to kind of be checking, staying as safe as possible, because obviously electrical equipment can be really dangerous. So the recommendation is to get it tested. Whether that's you want to pay for somebody else to come in and do that, or as Giles' shed does, buy the equipment, do a course, and have somebody there that's competent and responsible for that. Okay, great. So I'll go to the next slide then.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So let's assume that we are taking a piece of equipment in to keep in the shed and use. The first thing we do is, having passed its PAT test, put the PAT test label on it, but then we give it one of these labels that you can see at the bottom of this page. And what that does is it's got our logo, the serial number of the device, and a QR code. Rachel's going to ask me what a QR code is.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was my cue. Giles, what's a QR code? I'll just say as well. I've just said as well. We've had a question about PAT testing come in, but I'll ask that at the end. So, Emma,
Sure.
thank you for your question. I'll ask it at the end because we've just.
Okay. So a QR code. You see
What's a QR code?
Square thing with all the dots on it. It's called a quick response code, and it was invented by a Japanese car parts company because normal barcodes, the vertical line thingies, have a maximum of 48 characters, and their serial numbers were getting longer than that. And so they invented this particular code, which can take up to 4,000 characters. Now they come into several different varieties. So you can use it the same way as the Japanese car parts people did, just to have a serial number or any sort of text you like. But the most common use for them is to hold a link to a website. So this may well work if you've got your mobile phone with you and you point it at the QR code at the bottom. You'll probably see, depending on your phone, a little yellow box appears, and you can press on that yellow box or the text below it, and that will take you to the Debenham Shed website, where there is a sample page of what a user would see should they do that live in the shed. As you can see, I'm working from home today. Our shed is connected via a 4G network, and if we were to run this call over the 4G network, I think we'd use all our data in one day. So I'm doing this from home. So if anybody fancies a go at that, if you press your camera against that, you may well see the next few slides coming up.
Okay. I was just going to say it has to be on a camera screen, doesn't it? It has to be open to camera, and it kind of
Pretty much every modern phone, smartphone will work. If your phone is very old, there are apps that you can run that will do the same thing. It doesn't have to fill the screen. It can be quite small actually on your screen, and it will work. But yes, that's we use them a lot. Now the next question I think Rachel's going to ask is, how do you generate it?
If I wanted to set up a QR code with a bit of information or a link attached to it, how would I do that?
So the very simplest way of doing it is there are literally dozens of websites where you just put in the URL or the text that you want to create the code with, and it will generate them. The one I use most is called QR Code Monkey. I think if you Google QR Code Monkey, you'll find them. I think you can get about 5 or 10 of them a day or something. There is a limit to how many you can do. But for these, what I want to do obviously is create a whole page of QR codes on a self-adhesive label, so that when kit comes in, we just peel a label off and stick it on. For that, I use a language called Perl. For anybody who's a computer nerd, they'll know what that means. And Perl comes with a lot of different modules for doing lots of different things. And fortunately, there is a module that makes it pretty easy to create your QR codes. And so basically, my Perl script just simply goes from number 1 to 100 or whatever it is I can get on a page, and just generates code after code after code after code.
Right, okay.
I have a whole page of these that just do it. So there are different ways. If anybody wants to know more about generating them in pages, I can certainly release the code to you, so you can see how I do it. It's pretty straightforward.
Brill. And we've just had a comment from Roger just saying he used the QR code, it works okay. So
Hooray! Well done, Roger.
Yeah, thank you for testing that. And yeah, I guess for an average shed, probably who, you know, if anyone wanted to start this, maybe that QR code monkey would be probably enough to kind of get you started.
Yeah, I mean,
I've used that website before. Actually, it is really straightforward. You literally, when I used it, it was kind of, yeah, I think I was setting up a link to the Men's Shed website, and it was kind of copy and paste the link. It generates you a code. You can add your own logo and stuff into it as well. So you wanted your shed logo, it kind of sits in the middle or whatever. So you can personalize it, and it just, yeah, you just download a copy of it, and it's really straightforward. So
the other thing you can use them for, but not many people do, is you can do it to set up your Wi-Fi credentials. So what we do, and I didn't set the Wi-Fi up. It has the stupidest, longest, horriblest password you could ever imagine. Lots of letters and numbers and all that malarkey. So what we did was we just, I think, used QR Code Monkey to input the SSID password, created a QR code. We just stick that on the wall. So if anybody wants to, a guest comes in and wants to join our Wi-Fi, they just simply point their camera, their mobile phone at the QR code, and it will set them up to use our Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that is handy actually, because most Wi-Fi passwords are, you know, as you say, kind of a long series of letters, numbers, capital letters. Yeah, not the best. Yeah, that's really good. Handy tip.
So every device that comes in that we're keeping in our fixed asset gets a number and gets a sticky label. Put the sticky label on. And then we take photos of the device and we enter information. The administrators can enter information into our database, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Cameras, mobile phone cameras, are absolutely incredible. The resolution and the size of the images they take are enormous. As I said before, our shed's connected via 4G, and if we're shoving these photos up and down at that massive resolution, we'd quickly run out of our data. And so what happens is it automatically, you take the photo, press the button on the app, it uploads the photo, but it also reduces its size and it creates a tiny thumbnail as well. So we try and save some of our bandwidth. If you've got a shed that's connected via fiber, that's probably a bit over the top. But for us, where we're really, we kept running out of bandwidth, we were looking at every single way possible to try and reduce the amount of bandwidth we used.
And what was the app that you used to do that, Giles?
It's part of the the whole thing is written in a language called PHP. PHP is a very good scripting language. It's used pretty much universally to create web pages. So it creates web pages, and it does that from a database called MySQL, which is a free. Everything we're going to show you today, in fact, all the software I use is free.
Okay.
A technique called open source or copy left. I think I actually prefer copy left. I think that's a lovely term.
Yeah. And MySQL, that's on the slide there. So would that be the starting point for anybody that kind of wanted to set this up? Would they head to that?
In order for this to work, you need to have a web presence, a website, a web service provider that supports PHP and MySQL, and pretty much all of them do.
Okay.
It's just not anything particularly peculiar.
Okay.
The reason I use open source software is largely because it's free, but also it means that if I make a mod to it, I can then share that with the rest of the community. I don't actually mod any of it. And part of PHP is a utility that resizes photos.
Okay.
So what you tend to find with languages like PHP and Perl, there's a whole library of stuff that people have created before that make writing things for it really, really useful. You're very fast. You don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Yeah.
The likelihood is somebody's already done it.
Okay, great. And obviously if there's somebody kind of watching that wants to set all this up, and if you're starting at square one, Giles has just said about having a web presence. We do, I think it's the final session, is it maybe? One of these
Yeah.
sessions is about creating a website. So, yeah, we will kind of
Stay tuned, I think, isn't it, Rachel?
join us at a later date to find out more. So yeah, there should be hopefully that kind of take you on a process that if you want to implement these things. And as I say, kind of we will share some contact details at the end. So if you want to contact Giles to ask, he's really helpful, very knowledgeable, as you can see. And yeah, just kind of wants sheds to utilize what's out there, really. As you say, it's all free. You don't have to kind of reinvent stuff. It's there if you want to use it. So
the next thing, obviously we need to make this stuff work on a phone with a very narrow screen. To do that by handcrafting code is quite hard work, but fortunately in HTML or JavaScript there's a thing called Bootstrap, which is a set of routines that automatically do the things you need to do when the screen gets narrow. So for instance, if you've got a sort of bar at the top with a whole load of menu picks, when you narrow that screen, it automatically turns that into one menu pick that puts it down. So it's the sort of thing that's easier to demo than to describe, but it really saves a huge amount of time. And it does mean to say that absolutely everything we write is usable on a mobile phone.
Yeah, and that's handy.
Everybody's got a smartphone these days.
Yeah.
Apart from the complete Luddites.
I think, I think it's sometimes nice to kind of not be accessible all the time, isn't it? But yeah, I think for these things, most people have got a smartphone, definitely.
So let's say that you walk into the shed and you walk up to one of our devices and you point your mobile phone at the QR code. I'm now going to show you the screens that will appear on your mobile phone. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So the first one is the asset description. I'm sorry that the text is a little bit small here, but there's a lot of information. If you follow the QR code, then you get a PDF and you can scale this up and see exactly what it's saying. So the first bits of it are about the device itself, the make, the model, what type of device is it. That allows us very easily to do searches to say, find me an angle grinder, and it'll probably say there's one in every cupboard. Or find me a lathe, find me this, find that. So there's then a section on where it is, so that it's easy to find stuff when you come in. Status, that's, is it good? Is it to be sold? Is it being repaired? Is it out on loan? One of the important things about our assets database is it allows us to log when we lend stuff to people, so we know where it is. And we just put in the comments field who it's loaned to if we're lending stuff out. Who it's donated by and what the value is. Obviously, we're then able to tot up, how many pounds worth of angle grinders have we got. I wouldn't say that's the most accurate thing in the world. It's based obviously on the estimate given by the person who's filling the data in. But it gives us a starting point.
Yeah.
When we do our insurance premium calculations and they say, what's all your kit worth? We've got it may not be to the nearest penny, but it's a useful thing to do.
Yeah.
Freeform notes, consumables is quite handy. This particular lathe has nice little vernier gauges on the sides, and so it needs batteries. So we just keep a record of what batteries you need, or if it's sanders, what sanding disc is. So it's easy to then go on to Screwfix or wherever and buy the bits when it runs out.
Okay, great. And as you say, you inputted, or the administrator had input all this information in manually.
Yeah, I do this when we do this when the thing arrives in. The next bits are all about the pat testing. So it gives you when the next pat test is due. It gives you the various bits of data that you need relevant to pat testing. You only really need to record the cable length and size if it's got a long cable. If it's got a short cable, it doesn't really affect the pat test. So I only put a length in when it's significant, which in this case. And then the little pencil at the bottom means this is what the administrator sees, so he can edit it by clicking on it. The non-administrators if just a member comes in and looks at the screen, they just see this data. They don't see the little pencil.
Okay, great.
And the next one, please. Oh, any questions before we move on to the next one?
Nothing new at the moment. We'll come back to the pat testing question at the end. But yeah, if you, as I say, kind of if you've got any questions for Giles or comments, please just comment them and we can ask him.
And the next one. So this is the media section. So below that, you'll see, I like to take a lot of photos. I think it's important because particularly if it got stolen, it's really handy if you've got a photo of the rating plate, because that's normally got a serial number and things on it. So you've got a good permanent record. And I didn't on this one, but I tried to take a photo of the rating plate plus its FADS label so that you can, it's all joined up and there's no question about where it came from. This device is quite handy because it's got an online manual, so there's a link to the manual online. So when somebody comes up, takes points their camera at it, they could go straight to the manual for that device. And there's also quite a lot of videos on YouTube and what have you about how to set it up, and there's a sales video and various other odds and ends. So when we're training somebody to use this piece of equipment, we can sit down with them with the video and talk them through the video as it's playing. That means we then get a consistent training session with somebody when they come up to a new piece of kit, which is also, very, very important with dangerous kit like lathes and things.
Yeah.
People get trained properly. And the little plus on the bottom means that you can add more video. The administrator can add more stuff to it or edit the ones that are there. And the next one, please.
Brilliant.
And the last set in this section is the pat test results. So you see we've pat tested it a couple of times. As I was saying earlier, you've got the visual test, the functional test, and then this is a device with an earth. So it has one more column in it than something that doesn't have an earth, and then the overall pass, fail, what have you. And you can see here I've recorded the figures, and the earth continuity has got very slightly worse, and the insulation resistance has got better, which is a bit strange, but that's the way of the world. But its leakage is the same. But there you see, if you had a device for 3 or 4 years, you can start to see its history, whether it's distinctly getting worse. And those are the bits of data that we record for all of our electrical assets. It's not electrical, then it doesn't have the pat test bit at the bottom.
Okay.
The other stuff.
And that's what, Giles, when you say, you'd click on the QR code, I know it had the pat test dates, but this come up on it as well. Did you have this section?
Yes. Yes. All 3 pages you've just seen will appear when you click on it. So anyone new can see, oh, this hasn't been pat tested for over a year. I better chase Giles up to do it.
Yeah.
It does send me reports saying, Giles, you need to do pat tests as well. So that's so there are a whole bunch of reports and things on the side of this that I'm not showing today, but they're kind of byproducts of the actual data, which I thought was probably more important to talk about today.
Yeah. So that QR code can kind of hold all the information that somebody would need to access about a fixed asset from.
All it does is holds the link to this database, and then
to all the database. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, great.
Any questions? The next slide? Yes, please.
Okay, well, I'll ask the question that came up before. I'll just post it. So Emma said, we've been directed to an online version. Would you recommend it? This is pat testing. Would you recommend it better to have a face-to-face course to have practical experience?
I think that depends on how competent an electrician you are. If you kind of know your way around the current electrical regs and things like that, online's absolutely perfectly okay. If you are at all concerned about how electricity works, then the face-to-face is so much better because you can ask the stupid question. So I think it depends a little bit on how well versed you are in things electrical. If you've got an electrical engineering degree or something and do the online one, you really don't need a face-to-face.
Yeah.
But if you're likely to think you're going to ask some questions, and it's not necessarily, I'm reasonably good electrically, but there was quite a lot of stuff came up on my course that I had to get my brain around. It wasn't as straightforward as I thought it was. So I think it really depends on your current knowledge of electrical stuff.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the question. So next slide, please. Yes.
So as we said at the beginning, these 4 sessions are largely about preparing for the session at Shedfest. So one of the things that I could do is take all of the code that I've written and pop it into GitHub as a repository, and
just to explain what GitHub is because I didn't know what it was.
A repository for open source software. It's where you can find and dump bits of code that you've written. It's free, and so that others can then download it and share it and use it and modify it to meet their requirements. So that's an opportunity. I really don't have the time to create individual versions for every single 6 of the 600 sheds, but I could dump it in there. One of the things, therefore, that we'd like to discuss at Shedfest is, are there other sheds with the competence and the desire to do that, to use that, to take that down, to use it? If there are, then we'll proceed that, and we'll set up a group, I think, sort of special interest group of shed members who are interested in things technical, and we can then share stuff. And other sheds may have other things that I've missed or that we don't use. So I think this is a two-way thing that I'd like to discuss at Shedfest.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people out there that are using similar things or different things, or definitely.
Indeed. The other thing is that we actually, Rachel and I removed just before, but I'd like to put back on, is that clearly buying pat test meters and going on courses is something that costs money. It may be appropriate to use the UK MSA resources to try and find a way of bulk buying some of those. So maybe, approaching some of the training organisations to see if we could get a discount for shed members for doing pat testing, for instance, or would they run a special pat testing course for shedders that, rather than each of us paying whatever it is, £200-300 for the course, we pay them a lump for doing 20 people in one go. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that we can discuss at Shedfest. Similarly, UKMSA has links with various bodies that give us discount. Rent-A-Kill is one of them. It may well be that we could get UKMSA to approach the manufacturers of pat testing kit in order to see if we can get a bulk discount on that for shedders.
Yeah, definitely. I think if there's interest, and as you say, at Shedfest is a chance for people to kind of come together if they're interested. So yeah, we do have partnerships with organisations. It definitely could be something for us to pursue.
So I think the intention for Shedfest is that during my session, we will go through the questions that we're digging out of these sessions and any more whilst people who are watching it offline, and then we go through those, and it's more of a discussion than me doing a presentation like I've been doing today.
Yeah, brilliant. And then just the last one, obviously people have had a question throughout this, but if you've got any final questions or comments, please let us know. We've got a comment here. So Emma has said, Humber Alliance purchased a testing unit and share it across the sheds in the Humber area. Cool. Yeah, that's something Giles and I had talked about offline. It doesn't necessarily mean every single shed needs to buy their own equipment. It could be that there's a shed, or if you're attached to a network or a voluntary organisation, they may have them for you to use. So yeah, definitely worth mentioning. I think that's helpful. It's not every shed doesn't have to go out and spend £300 on doing that. So yeah, link up with your local sheds as well, see what they do, and that's something that we can discuss at Shedfest as well. Is maybe we can facilitate some of these connections so people are more aware of who's got equipment, or
of course you need the people with the skills as well as the
skills.
That's another thing. You might be able to bribe somebody with a cup of tea and a cake to come and do your pat testing for you.
Yeah, definitely. And then just kind of in terms of more information, Giles, Giles has kind of generously said people can contact him if they have got questions. So obviously we'll be back. I'll tell you when the next session is in a minute, but we will be back doing 3 more of these, talking about all different topics. But if you have got a question that you think Giles might be able to help you with, you can email him at info@debenhamshed.org.uk. So do jot that down if you've got a pen. We'll kind of show that every session. Giles is kind of passionate about supporting sheds to utilize stuff that's out there to make your lives easier. So he's kindly agreed people can email him. And then also, just if you've got kind of questions about things like pat testing, a good source of information will be the Health and Safety Executive website. That is a government website that will talk about kind of requirements. It will give you some more information. So please do have a look on there as well if you want to find out a bit more. But that's it. There's no more questions or comments that I can see, so we'll kind of wrap it up. If you are watching this after the live event, please do either email me or Giles with your question, or come to one of the next sessions that we'll be kind of hosting. The next one is on Wednesday, the 22nd of May at 3:00. And that will be membership records and mail shots. So that's what kind of keeping your membership information safe. How do you contact all your members at once? Stuff like that. Giles, anything
a
else?
little bit on GDPR then, I think, as well. Sorry, a little bit on GDPR that day as well.
A little bit on what? Sorry.
GDPR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, keeping information safe. Very exciting. But yeah, thank you very much.
Do you want to just talk about what the other sessions are quickly before we drop off?
Yeah. So we've got the next one. So we've got membership records and mail shots. After that, we've got member attendance logging, which is on the 10th of June.
Just a bit more on that. Our members hate computers in general. And so we used to have a logging system which involved them filling in lines in the spreadsheet, which drove them potty. So I used some of my smart home stuff to create a system based on tags, electronic tags. So they just tag in and out. Might be of interest to people.
Yeah, I've seen that in action. It was very handy.
And the last one is on the 25th of June at 10 in the morning, which is about creating a web presence, what you need to do in order to appear on the internet. Yes.
So yeah, active stuff. And if you're interested in more, Giles will be at Shedfest, as we say, kind of collating some of these ideas, talking to people. So yeah, join us then. And I will send out on Facebook, I will post the next session maybe next week, just a week or so before the event. Just that. And thank you very much, anybody who's watched, and thank you for your comments, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.